What's good, everybody? Hope y'all doing well. As y'all probably already know, Metro and Future recently dropped their album We Don't Trust You, and in this video I'm going to be showing y'all how you can make beats similar to that. So with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so going into the FLP here, it probably looks like it's quite a bit, but once I break down each of the layers, it'll make a whole lot more sense. Starting off with the tempo, I got a tempo of 145. The tempos for a lot of the beats on this project were probably between 110 and like 140. So starting off with the melodies, the first sound I got was this Vibrasine Bells preset from Omnisphere. And in the MIDI, I just put down a super simple pattern. The key of this beat is D sharp minor. I'm basically just using 4 different notes in the scale. The first note in the scale, D sharp, second note in the scale, F, the third note in the scale, F sharp, and then the fifth note in the scale, A sharp. And I'm pretty much just having all of these alternate amongst each other. So overall, it's a pretty simple pattern. So it's just like a light bell type of sound. So for my effects, the first thing I put down was an EQ. I cut off some of the highs and lows and then a little bit of these unwanted frequencies in the mids. Then I opened up RC20 and got the Lush and Crunch Guitar 2 preset. I turned off the noise and adjusted the wobble and space a little bit. And this just kind of helps it give it more of that kind of airy vibe. So moving on to my second melody sound, I got this Proxima key preset from Loop Legends Sylvan Pack in Analog Lab. And with this, I just put down a pretty simple key / pad pattern. All this pattern really is just taking that D sharp minor chord, so in other words the first, third, and fifth note in the scale, and then just playing that out for the entirety of the pattern. The only variation that you can see here is the second half of each of the 4-bar loops, which just has the first measure drop this middle note down 1/2 step down to the second note in the scale. This helps create a little bit of dissonance and more of that darker vibe. This layer is super subtle. I just have it in there to kind of fill some of that like low mid space. For the effects on this sound, I just have one EQ. It just cuts out some of those low bass sounds, so we have some room for the 808s later. Moving on to my next melody sound, I got this Biggie Brass preset from Zenology Pro. I'm pretty sure you could find a similar, if not better, preset from the SRX orchestras. And with this, I pretty much just put down some bass notes, and it's just on the root note of the scale or the first note, and I just have them layered, so one lower octave one and one higher octave one. So far, pretty much all these melodies have been really straightforward, just like simple layers put together. For my next melody sound, it's a phrase from my Resonance multi-kit. It'll be the first link in the description. So all I did is I dragged it and dropped it into the playlist, and I changed the mode to stretch. I pitched it up accordingly, so it was originally in G sharp minor, and so I pitched it up by 700 cents to put it into the scale of D sharp minor. And so when you're going in between scales, all you have to do is just count it up like you would on the piano roll. Let's go back to this bass note here. Say our original accent note is right here on G sharp. All we'd have to do is just count the number of spaces between G sharp and D sharp, either going up or down. So first we'll go down, so we could just count it down. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So going down would be -5 half steps or -500 cents. 1 half step is just 100 cents. Again, we're just going to count the keys going up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 going up. So if we go back to the phrase here, we can see on the pitch shift that it is plus 700 cents. Basically what I did is I started off with the phrase at G sharp minor, and using the strategy that I just showed y'all in the piano roll, I just figured out how many steps it needed to go up for it to be in key. And also later in the beat, I have a little bit of a switch up here. And the only difference is that I just take out the brass and this first accent, and I just put down this series of accents. And it's just one accent repeated over and over again. It sounds something like this. That's pretty much all that I have for the melodies. I'll just go through and play the melody sounds for y'all, and then we'll get into the drums. So now moving on to the drums, I'm pretty sure all the drum sounds are from the Resonance multi-kit. I think the only one that isn't is the 808. So starting off, I have this basic snare sound. and this is just hitting on the third beat of every measure. Visually, that just means that the snare's in the middle of the measure. So now moving on to the hi-hat, I've kind of a shorter sounding hi-hat. For the most part, it's a pretty simple pattern. It's just using a basic two-step, which you can get by going to the channel rack here, right-clicking on the channel, and then hitting the number 2 on your keyboard, or going to fill each 2 steps, and it'll give you the two-step look. After I had my 2 steps in, I went and took the 1/2 step snap to grid from the magnet setting, and then the paintbrush tool, and I just put in this row right here, and these right here. And once I had the first half, I selected it and then copied it over using Control B, and then I deleted the second roll here, and then I got the 1/6 beat snap to grid and just put in this last roll right here. So now moving on to the third drum pattern, which is the second snare pattern. For the first half, you can see it's just a basic snare. I just have it hitting at the end. The second half of the pattern is this roll, which I'll occasionally use to transition between the different sections of the beat. The roll looks kind of complicated, but it's actually not too difficult to make. So the first thing that I did is I went to the 1/3 beat snap to grid, and I just placed in a note on every grid line. After the first 3 notes, I skipped one, put one down, and then left another blank. Then I just filled in notes for the rest of the pattern like this. And then what I did is I just held shift and then left click with the mouse and dragged it. And then I kind of adjusted some of the notes, and this is what I got for the skeleton of the roll. Then I went to 1/3 step snap to grid. For this middle row right here, I cut it in half and duplicated it. And this note right here, I selected it and hit Control U to slice it to the 1/3 step snapping. And then so putting it all together, this is what the final roll sounds like. So after putting down my snare pattern, I then put down an open hat. I just have it on the second beat on all the odd measures. So 1, 3, 5, and a little variation here for the 7th measure. At the end of the 6th measure, I kind of make this stutter effect with it. The way you do this is you go to your open hat sound, you go to the second tab, turn the rest of these down and put the hold all the way up. Wherever the note cuts off in the piano roll, it'll just stop playing the sound after that, opposed to the regular. Playing this in context with the rest of the drums so far, this is what it sounds like. So now moving on to the last drum sound, which is the 808. We're pretty much only using the root note except for this little roll right here. I'm just using the regular line snapping, so the roll isn't even fancy, it's just pretty straightforward. That's pretty much the entire beat in terms of all the different sounds and all that. Alright, so that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Hope y'all found this video pretty helpful, and here's the final beat.